In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praises are due to Allah, and may His peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad. Thank you kindly, team, for all that you do. And a reminder to our listeners, my team and I are not affiliated with any organization or movement, with the exception that we are Muslims. Before we start, help us grow our podcast by hitting that subscribe button and giving us some thumbs ups. And please leave us some comments. We would love to know what you think about what we're doing. And thank you in advance for your support. Okay, let's start. Now, I promise to keep these upcoming episodes short because I want to stick to one incident, one story, or one memory so that I can stay focused. When I try to tell a story, so many other stories creep in, and it becomes confusing to me, trying to tell one story and then having to move on to tell the next story and skip over and flip-flop back and forth. So please bear with me because I do have a lot to talk about, but I want to do it slowly so that it is enjoyable, inshallah ta'ala. This one coming up is about Ismail and my move to Virginia from Maryland and the beginning of our meeting our new friends from Saudi Arabia. Okay, I'm going to stop here and continue with the remaining portion of this episode being in audio only. So stay tuned and relax and enjoy it if Allah wills it. Thank you. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Ismail and I had been living in Virginia for almost a year after we had moved there from Maryland, after he was hired as an engineer in a condominium complex where we would eventually live as a perk from his job as an engineer. This was the early 90s, and at that time, this condominium's 2 buildings was being rented out by many Saudis. Some were there with their families, while others were without family, but essentially a large portion of the complex was being rented by Saudis. And some of them may have purchased some of the suites. They were in the States, these Saudis, for various reasons, working, students, diplomatic statuses, and such. And therefore, they were supported by the Saudi embassy. And of course, as Muslims, the men needed a place to pray. And at that time, there were not many masjids nearby back then. And the Saudis, they rented a suite in the building where they were living, and they turned it into a musalla for the men's prayer obligations. And one day after work, Ismail told me that he was standing at the front desk when one of the Saudi brothers noticed his name, Ismail, embroidered on his shirt. The brother asked him in Arabic if he was Muslim. Of course, Ismail did not understand the question in Arabic, so the brother asked again in English. Ismail replied, "Yes, I'm a Muslim." And that's when the questions started, such as, "Where are you from? Where's your family from? How long have you been a Muslim? Where are you originally from?" On and on. That is typical of what happens when immigrant Muslims find out that you are an American born and that you are a Muslim. It's nothing insulting or we're used to it. We love it because it's good for them to know that there are Muslims in America. Okay. And they always say, it's good that you're blessed because we were born Muslims, you all accepted this way of life. And we like that too, mashallah. Okay. Now, these Saudis, these Arabs, beautiful people. I'm only naming them because that's where they were from, okay? But other than that, they were beautiful people. And if I could just say people, I would, but just to let you know where they were from, it's important to our story, my story. So they could hardly believe that there were Muslims in America, especially someone who looked a lot like them, but was not an Arab, but was an African American. They were so amazed and excited that they immediately invited Ismail to pray with them in their musalla, all 5 daily prayers. Now, when Ismail and I learned early on that as Muslims, we should always try our best to be conscious and consistent in our prayers and the time that they're due. And Ismail tried to be consistent even though he was working, but when it came to his prayers, he would go into that musalla and make his prayers. Not that the prayers were perfect or anything, and not that he was better than any of them, none of that. It was just how we learned how to schedule our day around our prayers. That's it. Okay. After they got to know Ismail, they were truly grateful to have him as a friend and a brother. And listen, Ismail was probably more grateful than they were to have them as friends and brothers. And they witnessed Ismail catering to the prayer times. He would sometimes be in the musalla praying when they may not have been there. So much so that they began saying, wow, he practices more than we do. And it got to the point where they wouldn't even start the Fajr or any of the other prayers until Ismail arrived. If he was a few minutes late, they waited. They were genuinely fascinated that this American man with no Arab background was practicing Islam. MashaAllah. So, back to the story. As time went on, I was introduced to a few of the wives of those brothers. And that meant a whole lot to me because I'm a very, very sociable person. I love people. Love, 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 love people. The more friends and associates I have, the more happy I am. It taught me how to be a people person, how to get along with people, how to treat them and make them feel welcome and wanted and loved and recognized and all those good things. Nevertheless, okay. So, having them as friends, at meeting, I'm getting tongue-tied. Okay. As I was introduced to a few of the wives of those brothers, and as I say, that meant a lot to me. Even though I already had my own huge circle of Muslim friends, new ones were always a blessing for me. Okay, mashallah, Allahu Akbar, subhanallah. Now, also having them as our friends, the Saudis, a plus was that the Saudi embassy funded an institute in Fairfax, Virginia. The building was huge. This Islamic institute offered classes for beginners, intermediates, and advanced students for Arabic language classes, Islamic studies classes, Quran reading and tafsir classes, seerah classes, hadith classes, and a lot more. And believe me, mashallah, all of this was free of charge. Even the books were free. Alhamdulillah. So, now this building was structured so that a section in the institute was for the brothers, and another section in the building was for the sisters. It was awesome. This was top-notch dawah for them, alhamdulillah, because in Islam, if you migrate to a non-Muslim country, you should be there to do some dawah. And this institute became the highlight of our lives, especially for us Americans and others who had reverted to Islam. I think we may have been in classes 2 or 3 times a week consistently. And they even offered classes on weekends and after work hours, which was a plus for us that worked during the day and throughout the week. And the instructors were all professionals, well qualified, and just top notch. MashaAllah. And today, after 34 years, I still might run into one or two of the teachers that taught me during those times at the Institute. MashaAllah. Okay, my dear listeners, I'm going to stop here and continue next week, inshallah. But before we go, I want to thank you for your subscription, comments, and thumbs ups. Until next week, peace.